Dystopia tonight. Dystopia tonight.
You definitely should pause. I like that pause. You're gonna pause and like pump me up more. That's a good pause.
Right. Yeah. How are you, dude? What's going on, man?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm super excited you're here because the first time I met you, we didn't talk very long, but it was, and I always wanted to know if you did this on purpose. I was living in LA. I was at the Comedy Store. I just got done at the belly room. I come downstairs. You walk down the hallway, and Bill Burr's on in the main stage, and I'm sitting at one of the high top tables, and you're like standing next to me, and at you turned to me and you went, "I just got these glasses. What do you think?" And we were wearing basically the same frame, and I just went, "Hate them," and you went, and then just turned around and kept watching Bill. And that's the only thing I ever said to you the entire time. And then I was like, did he know I was wearing the same glasses? Does he get it? And I'm sure you don't even remember, but I was like, they were the same size. And I had just gotten mine too.
No, that's usually the way I operate. When I have like things that are bothering me, like if I have problems I need to source out, or if I have like things I haven't been able to work out in my mind, I just pretty much just take it to everybody. Like whoever I run into, I'll be like, "So do you think my daughter should go to college?" I'm just talking out loud. But then you run into people and you're like, "Oh, that was a valuable one. That was pretty good." Yours doesn't sound that insightful. To be honest.
No, it wasn't. I thought it was. I thought it was funny, and then you were like, like you were like, "I don't know you well enough for you to make that joke." I was like, "Fair enough." No,
well, I started it.
Yeah, you did. And then the rest. I don't even think I watched the rest of Burr's set. I think in my mind I was just like, "What do I say now?" And I was like, "Nothing." He's just standing there. I think he thinks I hate his glasses. Does he know we have the same glasses?
Well, you didn't dissuade me. I've kept them.
Yes, yeah, they look great. Yeah, and I did. You were very nice to my bread that I made over there. I burnt the bottom of it. Turns out, but yeah, but I sent it to you. I didn't even expect you to respond because it was mid-pandemic. I was just bored. I'm like, I don't know him, but he's always making bread. I'm gonna see what he thinks of it. And you were like very nice.
Nice.
I was like, oh, good. And then I forced me to
I'll respond to bread stuff more than I will comedy stuff.
That's
like if people hit me up about comedy, or they're like, we're talking about whatever, like a show or something, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. But if someone's like, I'm thinking about making a seed bread, I'm like, all right, you've got me. I don't know you. I don't know where you live. I don't know what you're about. But if you, I'll be your guide. What do you need?
Right. Was that? I feel like people took it on during the pandemic as a hobby. Were you like insulted, or were you enjoying everybody's bread making? Like, I do this professionally.
I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. It was pretty cool that I had been doing it for so long beforehand, and when people ran out of yeast, it was like, well, here they come. But I did. The only ones who bugged me were the celebrities. Like regular people doing it, it was like, yeah, you should get into this. You should do it. It's going to make your life better.
Right.
But you knew that celebrities were doing it, and as soon as they were able to send their assistant for real yeast, they were going to bail. I think Jake Gyllenhaal was on Fallon or one of the shows, and he's talking about his bread baking. I was like, "You're a fraud. There's no way this is a thing that you're really doing. You just don't know what to talk about in this interview."
Right? Yeah, they're trying to sound normal. Like, yeah, we've been making pizzas and breads, and I've been farming, actually.
It was like, It's like somebody that got into a band that you'd been following since college, and they're like, "Have you heard the latest album?" You're like, "Oh,
yeah, exactly."
I knew them when they just had mixtapes.
Yeah, you're like, name their first album, asshole. Figure that out. Yeah, did you? So I was gonna ask you. I know this is like a generic question, but I really don't know. When was when did you start doing stand up, and what was your scene like at the time?
It was June 12th, 1993. And I started in New York, and that was my first open mic that I found in the Village Voice that that's why it was really ingrained in my head exactly when it was, because it was just pure panic. Like I called and they just gave me a thing. They said, if your friends will come and just take some drinks so you can be on stage. I was like, all right. And I walked back out and I told my friends we're going. And it was June 12th, 1993. And the comedians at the time were that were like my friends that I was starting to knock around with were Greg Giraldo, Jim Gaffigan, Kevin Brennan and Attell. Those guys were like a couple grades ahead of us.
Okay.
You know, they were already like sitting at the cool kid table in junior year, and we were just showing up with our backpacks. Wanda Sykes. Yeah. And it was a really fun scene. It was like, I really liked starting in New York. I grew up outside of New York, so it just seemed like the natural place. But it actually was just very lucky that I lived there and got to start stand up there, because it was such a great comedy town. You could just scrape around and get spots, and there were so many great people on all the stages that so you just were learning so much. But in the beginning, it's I would do a spot and then just kind of like you'd follow your friend and be like, "Oh, Gaffigan has a spot now." Then he would do some open mic, and you would just sit there, and you probably did like one every week and a half.
Somebody told me in the beginning, and this is when I started when I was in New York, that Gaffigan, to get used to being on stage, would go up and make animal noises and not do anything, or like meow. Is that true?
It was kind of like it wasn't like pure that, but it was kind of like the beginning of what he was ended up doing, like that with the talking about, what did he just say that he just why did he do that? And it was all like the beginning of that. And he'd throw in some there were times when like Giraldo and I would be throwing, fastballs as hard as we could with our, really pretty poor material, but in that little open mic room where we're all doing it, like we would kill, and then Gaffigan would get up there and he'd be so weird and do it, and we were like, and he would bomb, and we were like, geez, what's gonna happen to Jim? Jeez, I wonder if he's ever gonna get it together.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool because the classes thing always interests me, because when I was in high school, I was a huge comedy nerd. I got all the books and just read everything I could about all the beginnings and stuff or whatever. But the classes always seem to blur. You know what I mean? Like I always get confused who was around when. So it's interesting you said that Dittel and Brennan were like a couple years ahead of you. Yeah,
it was definitely. In the beginning, it's very clear lines are drawn of who's in what class, because you're the freshman and you're very conscious of trying to break into that hierarchy, and it's it's very difficult. So you're looking at the landscape and you're like, okay, well, I can't approach Attell because he's obviously a junior. He's hanging out with Nick DiPaolo and Colin Quinn, and which is actually kind of wrong. Attell never hung out with anybody, but he was always his own thing. But it was like that. Like you saw, like, okay, so those guys are up there. I can't go just walk up to that table. There's this weird sophomores that are around. There's like Kevin Brennan, and who else would have been like an approachable sophomore? There was like I don't know. It's hard to even remember. But there were guys like, a little Stratus, a little, like Jay Moore and some other people, and they were around at that time. And so you're just looking at it desperately trying to fit in, which is, all life. If you show up in a business, or if you just showed up at school, and that was just the way that it went. So you're very clear. But then later on, you're right. It does become very blurred, because after 10 years, you're all kind of end up just, you're all just part of the, what is it when you graduate and you go back?
It's like a high school reunion, or
no, not a reunion.
Alumni.
You're all part of the alumni. Yeah. You're all just the equal. You're just like class of 92, but it doesn't matter. You just have a couple Tonight shows and whatever under your belt.
Yeah. I was talking to Kathy Ladman was on, and I was talking about like, just when I started, I remember being at Stand Up New York, and Louis C.K. and Todd Barry walked in.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, that's fucking awesome. And then a guy that I was with who was like a little bit ahead of me was just, I was like, he knew I wanted to go. And he was like, just don't. He was like,
Yeah.
now's not the time or whatever. And,
Right. Yeah.
But now it's kind of funny. And now I feel like people are almost, I don't know if you're, but like insult, like anytime I'm like, doing a show or whatever, especially with other comics, we always take photos. I don't know if that's just because of like you know what I mean or whatever, but I feel like that's like just for nostalgia, like anticipating it. Like I'm gonna want to remember this. Now I've got so many. I'm like, I don't fucking remember where I was or what I was doing or why we were doing that.
Yeah. It is such a fun, fast ride. It would be good to have. There's always some documentation, and you always look a little goofier. It's probably better not to have photographic proof of. There's enough cassette tapes out there with early sets that are humiliating enough.
Right. It's also fun to see the gradual weight gain. Like I never understood why people put like beginning to end photo. Like I'm like, oh, that's a horrible flip book.
Yeah. Yeah. Just look at what happened to my hair. Yeah.
Oh my God. So I got a clip from a friend who I had on who loves you. Who says he knows you. Do you have it ready? Do you have it ready to go, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. We're going to play this real quick.
Tom,
right.
I know you love the cat noise, and this is for you, buddy. Yo, 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 yo. Hebel.
Amazing.
So clip for him.
Joey's the best. He's so great. He's so great. It's funny that we start talking about how Gaffigan almost ruined his career doing cat noises, and Joey saved his with cat noises. But he's just so great. When I did a couple shows and he was like doing the warm up, he was the warm up comedian on it. And he would break out. I would always beg him to do the cat stuff. But I remember the best memory I have of Joey was when I was really starting out, probably. I don't know if I was a middle act or probably an opening act at Rascals in West Orange, which was this early club that's no longer there. But it was like where everybody came through, like Wendy Lehman and Paula Poundstone and all these, Dice and all these, like that was like the big headliner club in Jersey. And if you could get gigs there, you can make $300 on a weekend and go out there and rub elbows with these people. And I had to stretch because Joey Cola was late coming from Long Island. On a Friday, he had to come from Long Island through the city out to New Jersey. It was just brutal. And he came up on stage. They're asking me to stretch, and I probably, just doing crowd where I had nothing to stretch. There was no like bag to reach into of, let me do the old stuff. There was no old stuff yet. And Joey came in, and it was truly authentic New York, Long Island guy who'd been in traffic probably for 4 hours to get to New Jersey. And he just got up there and just riffed off of his angst and just tore the roof off the place. Like the first 20 minutes of that headlining set was just the most powerful thing because it was so real and he was so angry. Oh God. I remember I couldn't believe the power of one person.
Yeah.
Who just made bad decisions of when to leave. If he had just left at 2:00, he would have had like a mediocre set.
That's so good. It is funny. We were talking about his underlying, like everybody knows me. They know I'm a nice guy. Cause I always tell him he's like the nicest guy. Everybody loves him. You mention his name anywhere you go in comedy. They love Joey Cola. And he's like, I appreciate that. And I love it. And he goes, but I am angry when I'm on stage. He's like, it all comes from anger. And I'm like, oh no, we know.
Yeah. 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 No, it's authentic.
Yeah. I'm like, we know that.
But it's not bitter. It's not a bitter darkness. So it's like it's like a Rodney thing. It's like you're watching him suffer, and that's great because it's only going to be him that is suffering in dark. It's not going to spill over onto you.
Yeah, it's like even watching like Brian Regan. You know that guy's aggravated. Like that. What's funny is that about him too is like I feel like most of those experiences that he has are real to some. Like every comics, real to some extent. And I'm like, I wonder if he flipped out actually. Like, what's the real story behind this bit? Was there a lot of yelling first, and then it got crunched down?
Yeah. Probably a lot of quiet. Probably just a lot of quiet and fantasizing about what he would do, and then it becomes part of his act.
Right. Did you have guys that influenced you like early on that you wanted to emulate?
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, the grand influence was like Cosby and Steve Martin and Carlin, like the giants that you just grew up watching and stuff. But then when like banging around New York, it was Wanda was huge. It's kind of interesting, like you admire New York was just so filled with greatness. Yeah. That, you just rolled in and you're just watching like Nick DiPaolo cranking out just the most amazing, tight cutting jokes. Right. And then you'd see like Colin, who's just like pouring out all of this intelligent stuff. And then Wanda, who just had this defined character of herself and how just powerful she was. And the hardest part as a young comic in New York was admiring them and being influenced by them, but then at a certain point, shutting them all out. Like you had to literally, Attell was such a dominant force, and I remember like when I first got into the Cellar, I was like, oh, I guess I have to be like Attell, I have to be dirty, right? Like Attell, I got to be kind of outrageous, and it's like that's not you, but you're so influenced by these great voices all going up before you that I think
did
creatively,
it take a while to shake it? Sorry.
I think
shake it off.
Yeah, totally. And the only way I could do it at the time was just to not watch anybody, like not even go into the room, just stay upstairs and wait for them to come and tell you it was your time to go on. So it's like I love them all and admire them, but at a certain point it was like this has to be. You have to put blinders on, and just do you. And so like you can learn a whole bunch and want it to be as good as them, but you can't be them.
Right.
So
that's actually I usually ask if anybody's got advice for like younger comics or whatever, but that's actually really good advice too, because that's something I didn't even realize. Like, I feel like even at a certain point, you have to stop watching stand-up specials. Like I used, anybody that enjoys them in the beginning, when you're watching them, you'll never get out of that.
Well, it also depends where your head's at, who you are at that moment. Like sometimes when I'm in the car, like sometimes I'll do nothing but listen to stand-up comedy on the comedy channels because I'm just enjoying it and I'm just that guy for that week. Right. And then there's other times there's like I don't want to hear anybody for whatever reason. Everybody sucks. I just like I don't like it. I just
and that's
don't
when you switch to like murder porn where you're like,
you're right. That's what I'm. Right, exactly. Throwing on metal or doing something weird. But yeah, it really depends on who you are and what you're going through at that moment of what you can. Sometimes it's good to fill up, and sometimes you kind of like your cap off and you're good with anything really. Like not just stand up, but like how much you're reading, how much you're watching the news, like all that kind of stuff. You're never the same person every day, so you got to kind of be a little. Do
you find that when you're coming to like the end of a special though, or like the end of like a material when it's about to become a special, do you feel yourself detaching from the material a little bit when you're getting ready to close it and starting a new thing? Like what's the process in between those two for you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there is that thing of there's like a freedom when it's over, because you don't have to think about it so tightly. You start to dial in pretty it gets pretty tight. But yeah, sometimes an interesting thing that happens is in every special, all of a sudden something creeps in that hasn't been there. Like all of a sudden something brand new is always in, because your subconscious is craving. You're not used to, as a comic, doing the same thing over and over and over again. But then you start to dial it in, and then invariably, like the last 2 weeks, all of a sudden something comes in. You're like, let's just throw it in and see what happens. We could always cut it out, and it always survives because you're just like your brain is done with the same toy night after night. Yeah, they're pretty interesting, and sometimes when they're done, your brain kind of flushes it out. Sometimes it hangs on to it. I don't know. It's different.
Yeah, we were talking. I don't remember who it was, but we were talking about being authentically there within the same material, and when you feel like you're not in it anymore, or if it doesn't feel right to you. But then also sometimes that'll come back, and it was like one of those things that I actually don't understand. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever been like, like a couple jokes or whatever it was, and you're like, you felt it when you were doing it, and then for some reason it just fades. It's not there anymore. It's not working. But then it'll come back, and I have no idea what that is.
Sometimes it comes back. Sometimes it doesn't at all. Sometimes it's just like you love it. You think you're delivering it the same way, but you're not. Yeah. And the audience isn't buying it because you're truly something. You think you're into it, but another part of you is saying, nah, we're past this for whatever reason. It's become stale. Yeah, jokes are interesting that way. And then other ones you could do for 20 years and they actually get better every time you tell them.
Do you have a favorite joke, one that you've just never gotten rid of?
Yeah, there's a couple that like creep in, like if I'm doing like a corporate gig and you just want to throw stuff out that just kind of like works in the moment. But there's this one silly joke of about being married where I'm like, when you get married, when you're dating, this is always a subject I go back to. When you're dating, like you have to do so much more work and you have to stay in shape, and you could be single at any moment. When you're married, you can get as fat as you want. It's just a finish line. It's like, I love you, you love me. We can't have sex with other people. Let's eat a chocolate cake. Do you want ice cream on that? You bet your fat ass I do. And that joke is as old as my stand-up career is. And I'm telling, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. If my brain decides that's something we should go to in the moment, it's going to probably be the strongest joke of the entire set, which can be very humbling and upsetting because you think you've improved and moved on. And then you dust that guy off. He's always ready to go. Right.
Oh my God, that's great. One of my favorite jokes of yours that I think about annually because it has to do with Christmas. And I don't even, this isn't even the whole punchline of the joke. It's just the way you deliver it. And it brings me immense joy. It was the stand-up special you did where you're dressed in bell bottoms and the whole set was like a 70s.
Uh-huh.
And
I was freaked out.
That's not on Netflix anymore, is it?
It's I think it's on Amazon.
Right. Okay. Because I couldn't find it for the long. I would got off of Netflix, and I was like, why? But you talk about people who hate Christmas, and I think about it every Christmas because it's so. You're like, what is it? Is it the lights? Is it the joy? Is it the? And it fucking kills me because I have friends who hate Christmas. Yeah. And it always comes. I have family members who hate it or always just miserable, and I always want to just go. Give me a second. Let me just get some. Right. It's so good. It was the first time anybody had ever crystallized exactly what I felt.
The lights are too nice. You have too much joy. You're going to actually enjoy yourself for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's exactly. Bad. Is it the cheer? Is everybody being nice to each other? What is it?
Right.
It's so fucking good.
Yeah, it's funny. I wish I could remember the rest of it. Some people can do that. Some people, any joke they just have at the ready. It's all just paraphrasing.
Oh my God, everything. I'm going back into the city. I'm finally fully vaccinated, which is awesome.
Nice work.
I think I have no idea. Yeah, I mean it's great. I'm glad I did it, but like
absolutely.
Now it's like 7 of the Yankees got it after being vaccinated, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Is that true?
Bill Maher 7 of the Yankees just got it, and Bill Maher just got it, and he's fully vaccinated.
Really?
Yeah. And he's asymptomatic.
Asymptomatic, right.
Yeah. I don't know why I was saying anti. He's anti a lot of things, but
right. Well, I can see it. I can see you catching the bug, but not being affected by it.
Yeah. So it's just.
And now with no mask, we can just walk anywhere we want other than an airplane.
Yeah. That's kind of freeing.
I wonder how long, how there's going to be so many fights now on on social media. People are just going to be really like, they said.
Yeah.
You know what this made me realize? We're never going to get out of the phase of comparing shit to Nazis or Nazi Germany or any of that ever, because we did it, you know, the comparatives since we're there during Trump. Trump's Hitler, yada yada yada, which, you know, valid. And then you got Gina Carano comparing the COVID stuff to, you know, Nazi Germany or like Republican whatever. And now it's gonna. Now I just saw somebody talk about the option of showing your vaccination card to show you don't have to wear a mask indoors. They're like, oh, they're gonna have us wear armbands like the fucking Jew. And I'm just like, really? Is this comparison ever gonna die?
Exactly. And you know what? I actually was thinking of like, how can I just put a little V on all of my shirts? Like, I'm totally up for it. Whatever you need. I'll put like a little, like a carnation, or you want to put it on my glasses, a hat, a big V hat.
Yep.
Whatever you want. I'm on board. I don't get
the dude who gave me my second shot was so cool because he had a bunch of leftover. I was like the last, I don't know, whenever they scheduled me, I was like the last guy that day, which I thought was alarming, by the way, because I didn't realize that they had I was the end of the line, and it was just me, army dudes, and a few nurses, and I was like, oh my God, they're gonna take me away. Like, I've seen this movie 1,000 times. Right. You know,
they've lured me in.
Span me, alarm goes off.
Yeah.
So I was a little panicking. But he had a shit ton of buttons, and he was like, "Oh, if you want more than one," and I was just like,
"Yeah,
put one on every jacket."
It's so funny how quickly it changed, because I went to pick up a prescription today, and the guy, the same place where I was, 2 months ago, was like, "So, do you have any extra?" And they were like, didn't want to talk about it, and they just kind of, yeah. And now he's like, "Have you been vaccinated? We've got all 3. Tell all your friends we've got all 3." I was like, wow, what a difference a month makes.
Yeah.
So you're going back into the city, you were saying?
Yeah, I'm going back into the city. Doing Greenwich Village on the 26th. Gonna be my first time back on stage, and I'm like, I've got a bunch of new stuff. So says everybody. But I do, you're writing or whatever doing that. But and then I don't know if I even remember my old stuff. I did some Zoom shows, but those don't count, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can work. Well, you'll anything that gets you through the first 15 minutes of whatever you have to do.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you'll just grab onto anything.
I fought doing the Zoom shows in the beginning, and to the point where there was some kind of charity one that I didn't know. I thought we were just coming on as comedians to shit talk. Yeah. And I was like, sure, I'll come on. That'd be fun. The guy, donated the most and he wants to talk to comics. That's fine. And then Tom was like, hey, you getting ready? You're doing a set in 10 minutes. And I was like, no, I'm not. And he's like, yeah, you are. It's a stand-up show. And I was just like, fuck. And he was like, what? And I'm like, I don't want to do this shit. I'm like, I'm going to pretend it freezes. And he's like, no. Yeah.
I know. Any way to muddle through.
Yeah,
but wow, so you didn't do a single set the entire time?
No, I didn't. I'm in New Jersey, and we had...
Where in Jersey?
LBI down by all the way down by the shore.
Are you?
Yeah.
You're at LBI?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Why did you grow up over here?
Yeah. My family's had my grandparents had a house there forever, and my parents have a place there.
My parents had a place in Beach Haven, and that's why I was like,
Beach Haven Crest.
Yeah.
We're over by the post office.
Oh,
the
are you?
Post
I know.
office.
Oh wow, I know exactly where you are. Oh, good. We can hang out when you.
It's one of my favorite places. I'll be there in August.
Oh, you really? Oh, dude, let's get. I'll buy you lunch or whatever.
That's a long commute. LBI to the city to do spots. You're gonna cancel a lot.
I know. I am.
Especially in the winter when you're the only car on the boulevard and all the blinky lights. That's a tough ride for 15 minutes.
Oh, dude, it totally is. And not only that, this is funny that you said about the boulevard. So I was I'm dating this girl at the time or whatever, and it was the first time living over here, and she was just like she ran out of contact lens stuff, and I just was like clueless, and I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I'll just run to the 24-hour. Nothing. Like
even the Wawa.
Yeah, Wawa. Wawa.
Yeah, the CVS closes. Yeah, the CVS closes. Right.
So there's a hotel, and I was like, oh, comic. I'll just go to the hotel. They got those mini, those little things. Yeah. I go into the hotel. I'm like, hey, do you have like a little kiosk section, a pharmacy thing? And they were like, not in this area. I'm like, in this area. I'm like, where the fuck am I?
Yeah. You got to go over the bridge.
Yeah, like not around. Like not around these parts. I'm like parts.
Maybe in the Pine Barrens, you can make a deal with the Jersey Devil and get you some of that. You're gonna have to wait till morning if you want it.
Exactly.
So I heard that that Kugel's closed.
Yeah. Isn't that a fucking shame?
They're mowing it down.
Yep, I know. There's a lot. When you drive down, dude, when you go down over there, it's kind of sad. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't even know they knocked stuff down, and it's just all of a sudden it's dirt piles and the weirdest thing is I just heard this kind of, there's like a Chick-fil-A being put in and the same place. Yeah, man, that
was the cool thing that they didn't let chains in there.
Right? And that was
that?
it. Yeah, and I don't know if it was because of post like a pandemic shit, if they were like money or what. But
we'll take the corporate money. That's too bad. Well,
it is
probably.
But,
well,
we'll see. You go down to Schooner's Wharf and get the fudge and everything and walk down there.
Oh yeah. Oh, fudge.
Yeah, man.
Please, Bagel Eddie's.
Yes,
one of the best bagels in the planet.
Absolutely. Oh, dude, when I moved to LA, I missed those in the worst fucking way because no one told me that. There's no bagels that are good out there at all.
I know.
Anyone who tells you that who lives there is lying.
The New York Times ran an article about how LA bagels have really come up, and there's like that article's so fraudulent. Like there's a couple that are pretty decent, but it doesn't compare.
You know what I got to tell you though, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I would appreciate it. Pizza down here sucks. I don't know why. I think we're too far from New York.
Yeah, it's true. It's always bad. Joey's was for a while.
Yes,
and
Joey's
that was like meh.
Yeah, Joey's is meh, but it's the top tier of meh. You know?
Yeah.
What I mean?
What's the one with like the surfboard and the sun down towards Beach Haven? That one.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name.
It's not very good, or you would have remembered it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The Chegg just went year round. They were open oddly enough, they were open during COVID, which was nice.
Yeah, they're legit. We do a big wing competition with my nephews every summer.
Nice. Do you do this? Do you do the ludicrous sauce?
The ludicrous, yeah. And everybody starts to cry and bang their heads out. People have taken their clothes off and ran down the street, and it gets pretty funny. It's always it's become one of our mainstays.
It's so good. I love doing that. They're all so nice there too. I did the ludicrous thing from the first time, and I didn't realize how serious it was until they brought it out with gloves.
Yeah, and they warn you.
A glass of milk for you, and I was like, "Fuck."
They're always like, "Honey," don't do this. Like, I'm doing it.
Yep.
But it's such a beautiful place, and to be there off season that's the one thing I miss about, because now I'll go back and it'll be summer and you get that, which is always fun. But I always loved being in New York and just buzzing down there in like January when no one was there and just spend a couple days. That was great.
That was the nice thing COVID sucked overall, but when the winter over here, you can go to the beach. Like there's nobody here, so I wasn't like worried too much about like
great.
the masks and shit over there. So I don't think
finally figured out how to keep the bennies out. That was it.
Just
pandemic, and you kept them all up north.
I know.
I didn't see
good luck
once.
Yeah, good luck for like 2 weeks last summer.
Don't tell me that, because I'm going to post signs along 72, like quarantine area, stay out.
Yeah.
It's it's nice over here. That's awesome, dude, that you come down in August. Like I said, that'd be great. Get together. But I don't know. You're fully back. You're going back on tour now, and it's gonna be like everything's fine. Like you're at full capacity.
Some of no, I don't know. I think they're still not full capacity, but they're getting there. It keeps going up. I went out like once a month all through the pandemic up until November.
Right.
Like I went to the clubs that I knew and loved and knew that they were gonna do it the right way, and the city was like in an okay spot.
Right.
Like I did Denver and Cleveland and Portland and Salt Lake City. So I kept.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I kept I was just calculated risk. I was just comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
But it kept me pretty sharp, and I was able to keep doing stand up a little bit. Like,
right.
it was hard because you would work on stuff and then you wouldn't get to try it again for another month after that weekend was over. But it still was better than nothing. And then I got to November and then I shut it down. But recently I did Omaha, I did Kansas City.
Ooh.
And that was 2 weeks in a row. And then this week I'm going to New York. I'm going to do the Cellar. I'm going to do my radio show, Come to Papa from the Cellar, and then go down to North Carolina. And so this is my first full week out of the house since before all the troubles.
That's fucking awesome.
I literally don't know how to pack. I'm literally like, how do I have to bring all my clothes? How does this work again? I don't.
I had a bag packed for the longest time, and I didn't even realize. Like, it was just I came back. I went out to LA before COVID. Were you out on tour? But while COVID was like hitting, and then you had to come back. Okay,
yeah,
Did you? I have tapes from. I don't know why I said tapes. I have digital content.
Yeah,
from
your
tapes. Yeah, from then, where I'm literally making fun of the fact that we all might die. Like in the beginning, like, hey, we're all out, fuck it, whatever.
Yeah.
Mentioning it like once or twice, and then I watched those back, and I was like, oh wow, that was terrible.
Yeah,
I shouldn't have been saying any of that.
Kira Sultanovich and I were doing like the last week. It was the weekend when it was all of a sudden starting to emerge in Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like that was the first spot, right? That or Oregon.
Yeah.
And we were and we were in those airports doing like commuter flights, and like we had a weekend full of shows. And we were but it was all busy, but it was out there, and it was starting to close down, and that was it. We kind of parked it after that.
Yeah, I did I went out to LA because I did a short film on Amazon. I'm sure anybody who's watching is sick of hearing me say this, so I'm going to cut it when we actually post it. I'm sick of hearing me say it. But I did a short film. It's on Amazon or whatever, and Jim Henson's company saw it, and they loved it. Nice. So they had me come out to LA. Yeah, it's great. It's about depression, and there's a puppet in it that looks like me, unfortunately.
Nice.
So but they saw it, they loved it, so I went out there. And I was like, yeah. And they were interested in making it into a series. So that was going good. And then from there, you go back, you work your way back east.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the road or whatever. And then it was like Michigan, DC, God, where the hell? New Hampshire, whatever. And then the last shows I did were in New York. And then and it was like the day before, whatever. I'm in New York. Everything's great. I'm like going back home to Jersey. I'm all, you're all gross or whatever. And the next day they shut everything down, and they were like, hey, by the way, if you're in New York, you probably have it. And I was like, what? And then for like 2 weeks, I was like blank,
my short of breath.
Yeah. And my friend was, I was over with my friend. I saw him when I got back home or whatever, and he called me the next day, and he's like, you were here and you might have it. I'm like, I don't have it. I'm fine. I didn't know.
Yeah, but I'm not going back to New York for another year and a half.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was so fucked, but that was terrible. I know. I wish I could have gone back. My mom's at high risk or whatever, so I just had all this,
It was good to take a break. It was the only time to really stop. And even going out once a month, it was like that was a huge shift.
Yeah.
And I think it was healthy. I think especially if you've been doing it a long time, it was the only thing that was going to stop us from going. And everyone goes so hard all the time.
Yes.
And I think creatively, I think it's going to be a mixed bag. I think some people will stop and won't go on the road ever again because they're like, home is pretty great.
Yeah.
But creatively, just for the act, I think to take a breather and step back and then come back at it, I think I have to think that it's give you a little fresh perspective and either that or it's just gonna be clubs filled with horrible comedians for a while.
The ones that started during COVID on Zoom and now they're like, oh, we're comics, and I'm like, are you though?
Yeah.
Is that what happened? I don't know if you feel like this at your level, or if it's just the pure evil joy that I had, but I for a bit kind of enjoyed seeing clubs that wwere horrible or businesses in general like crumble while comedians survived.
Yeah.
Like I took it. I'm like, I probably should see a therapist because I took an immense amount of joy out of like hearing somebody shut down, and I was like, fuck you,
good
buddy.
for them.
Yeah. And while I was still kind of making money how I could.
It's kind of a slow number, though. A low number, isn't it? Like, who closed?
Well,
oh, I don't want you naming the names of the ones you're happy about.
I know.
We won't say. You don't without passing judgment. Are there any like main ones that are gone now?
No main ones. No, I mean, and I don't. Yeah, no main ones that are gone. Just in neighboring counties and states and stuff. And
I was gonna say like Dangerfield shut down, but they're moving and reopening somewhere else, right?
Oh, they are.
Creek and the Cave
they moved, but I love doing the Creek. Yeah,
right.
So there was a bunch like that.
I had my JFL audition there.
Oh, nice.
They were nice to me.
It was nice not having to watch everybody with their posting them selling out stadiums and stuff. It was a good break from that too.
Oh God, yeah. Also it leveled everybody out too. Like I quite enjoyed seeing all the talk shows try to operate their fucking shit from home, and and
that was annoying when everybody was like being so rebellious or cool because they didn't shave. It was like wild man.
Exactly. They're wearing these jackets and loosening the tie up.
A man of the people.
Meanwhile, their house just keeps going.
Right. Exactly.
You to do it in that room. Like I'm sure your closet looks like a normal bedroom. Like why don't you just do it from there? Like it was. I think didn't and I love Jimmy Fallon, but he was doing it in one room that had like his kids had a slide and a working treehouse within the room.
Right.
And I was like, we're not all the same. Stop it.
Right, exactly. But I think that from a show business perspective, very little is going to change. It's all going to go right back to what it was.
So
yeah. Oh yeah. I think they try to make it seem like shit changed because
we're different now. It's like when you go to a funeral and everyone in the family's like, we're all going to be nicer now. And this is, and 2 days later, you're like, she's a bitch.
Those tears weren't real.
Yeah. No, it's like a temporary thing. Everyone feels it. Everybody knows it, but they can't act on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a gig last week and I swear to God, 2019 in that room. 2019. The only thing different was I felt like I had to cough, and it felt like holding a fart.
Right.
Like, if I cough, everybody's gonna look at me. I'd rather shit my pants.
No, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, it is. It's been it's kind of I don't know. It's just kind of weird, but
so pre-comedy life, did you think you were going to be going towards show business, or did you have totally different aspirations as a kid and coming up?
No, when I was like in 7th grade, I learned the stand-up comic was a job, and that was it. From that point on, I was like,
oh wow,
I was pretty focused on that's where I was going to go. It just seemed more. I was funny and I was enjoying making people laugh. It was always a thing, and then I realized, there's grown-ups who just keep doing this. I was like, all right, I'll do that.
Right.
That seems cool.
Do you remember the first comic you saw when you were out? Like before you started doing stand-up?
I had never been to a comedy club before I went there myself to be on stage. But I just watched stuff on TV, and I saw Jackie Mason in Atlantic City with my parents. Wow. And that was the only live stand-up performer I had ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so funny. I mean, he was just a killer.
Yeah.
And but that was the only one. Like I had never gone to comedy shows or went to none of that. But I just was a student of it. Like I just digested everything. Once I started down that road, and that's like without YouTube. But you were just getting albums or just watching reruns and watching SCTV and SNL and anything you could possibly, or radio shows and Dr. Demento and Mad Magazine.
Oh, yeah.
It was just like anything that was just not taking the world seriously.
Right. Yeah.
Basically what you just wacky packs. It was like anything where some you knew there were adults at the controls and they were making just insane goofy stuff to break you out of the monotony. I was like, that was it. That was just I just was gravitated towards all of that nonsense.
Yeah, that's why stand-up always interested me and made me comfortable too, because I was always like I worried a lot when I was younger, high school, wasn't comfortable in any of that stuff, and always had these like bizarre, like insane thoughts. And then when I saw adults on stage making jokes about all the things I was afraid of, I was like, oh my God, this is great.
Right,
like,
right.
I don't have to be scared of any of that.
Yeah, not everyone's just sucking it up and getting through it like my parents are telling me to do. It's like there's actually a man drinking a big thing of alcohol, smoking a cigarette on a stage and yelling about this stuff. It's like, okay,
yes,
I'm not crazy. There are other people that are feeling this too.
Exactly. And for the rest of my youth, I was that older man in my head, even though I was like I'm still short, but like, braces, bespectacled, but in my head, I'm chain smoking and telling it like it is.
Just yelling out instead of everybody else in your life, just acting like this is all acceptable.
Jackie Mason was the first comedian. I didn't see him live, but my grandfather loved Jackie Mason, and he recorded his stand-up special or a set, whatever that he did on TV, and he had the family come over to watch it because my grandfather was like huge into all that stuff. When he first came to he was I'm a quarter English and the rest of me is Italian, and he came here and he started a business in New York, and he used to do wigs, and he did Ella Fitzgerald's and like everybody for celebrities and stuff. Wow. So that's his business that he created, and then and he loved kind of like the show business thing. He was he did a film with the guy who made Deep Throat. They started before he did all that kind of stuff, so like he was always kind of involved in shit.
Are you going to tell us that Jackie Mason wore a wig?
That'd be a good clip.
That would be good.
I wish the stories are not gonna get any better than that. So
I saw him when I first came out to LA. I had a meeting out at the pool of like the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, and the gym for the fitness center was right off of the pool, and it had like these open windows kind of thing. And I was just sitting there with this friend of mine, and we were just talking. And Jackie Mason comes out. He had been working out, and he was in dress pants and hard dress shoes and no shirt, just his little pink body, his little pink old man, short torso, Jackie Mason, and he just walked out by the pool and just was kind of slowly rubbing his torso in between his two sets of curls that he just did, and then went back in and kept working out. It's like, this is a weird individual.
That's the level of old I do want to get to, though. I don't know if it's generational or what, but that body type and shape, I feel like all old men back then. And they were not
the barrel
they didn't even
chest,
know.
torso, and weird pink nipples.
Did you think if this comedy thing goes well, that could be me in 40 years?
Yeah, it's like right. You're out there desperately trying to make it, and you're like, if the best case scenario, if I win. That's what I get. Young people going, ew.
Oh, God.
He's out of his mind.
When I grow up, I hope to be Sheba Mason. But it's crazy. And when you look at pictures of those guys when they were younger, though, they didn't go to the gym, but they somehow were in shape. You know what I mean? Like if they weren't fat, like if they, like when I look at my grandfather when he was younger, he had a build. And I didn't understand it because he didn't work out. And then of course he went into the barrel chested old man.
Yeah. They also didn't eat like we do. You ever look at in movies, like when you see anybody eating in like the 70s or the 60s or the 50s in a film, and they ask like for a sandwich, or they just watch the food. Film is like a great, and they bring out a sandwich is this thin piece of bread with one slice of salami and then another thin slice of it's thinner than your thumb was a sandwich. Yeah. Now they're like bigger than your head and we're stuffing them in. Of course we're not in shape.
Right.
And we're working out like crazy. But then you're eating like an entire village.
Yeah. Every time I watch White Christmas, I look at what Danny Kaye's eating. They'll bring out like that tray of sandwiches, but I'm always like, is there anything on those sandwiches?
No. And that's how they lived. There wasn't all this excess.
No.
Just filled with corn syrup and everything. We're just big blob people.
Yeah. Buttermilk and whatever the fuck they got.
You're right. So they didn't, all those guys, like all the badass guys, like like Charles Bronson and
Yeah.
James Garner and Eastwood, and they were all skinny. They just we didn't have to lift weights. There was no running. They just were living. They were just smoking, drinking scotch, whiskey, punching people in the face, putting their shirt back on.
Exactly. And it's funny too, because like even in movies today, there's always scenes where every other scene is somebody eating or doing something somewhere. And then back then I was watching North by Northwest the other day just to watch something, whatever, in Carrigan. He doesn't stop to eat. The guy doesn't eat that whole thing.
No water bottles, no eating.
I know.
No, they're just living their lives.
Yeah, exactly. Even though, what's the Jimmy Stewart one where his kid gets kidnapped?
The Morocco one.
The Morocco one. Stress eat a little. Your kid's missing something. Fuel.
No,
up.
they sat down and they tried to eat that Moroccan thing, and they brought the food down, and he had to sit down on the floor, and he was like, I can't do it, and he just walked out. And they didn't show him go get more food. He just didn't eat until the next day, and he had some black coffee, and then went and looked for his missing child. That's how those guys lived. Yeah. There was
impressive.
Could you imagine Clint Eastwood's being in an interview with Johnny Carson and saying, you're quite a foodie. He would have punched Johnny Carson right in the face. What do you mean a foodie? Like a food is like a hobby? That's like you're a foodie. No, I'm a man. I just ate a steak with my hands, and that's going to keep me good till Sunday. That's how people lived.
It's so great.
I'm a foodie.
Yeah, I know. We're a very soft society.
I'm going to need a crate of bottled water in my garage.
Yeah.
God forbid I go from the house to the car without having something to drink. That'll get me to the Wawa where I can get a big sandwich and some kettle chips. I'm a foodie.
And now I have Wawa delivered, which is sad. It's literally, you know where it is. It's
don't knock the Wawa. The Wawa is class act.
Oh, that makes me feel so good when I'm on the road and I come back and I see the first Wawa. I know I'm close.
The best.
Like, that's a
fresh. It's good.
It's the best. Everything.
Yeah.
Can I tell you my most pathetic COVID moment? I think, and Tom knows. No. Well, then we're wrapping up. No, I'm kidding. I ate way too much cheese this pandemic. Regardless, I mean, I know that, but at one point I just was hungry. I wanted some of it, and I didn't cut it, and it was just a block. And I just peeled back the plastic and grabbed some Ritz, and was like,
yeah. Now you're living.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just the worst.
That's good. That's living right there.
Yeah, I was like, this is so good. But
and you don't sit down; you just do it while standing. In the kitchen.
Over the sink.
Yeah,
crumbs and cheese. 4 a.m.
And then wrap up the final little piece because you're not an animal. let me
makes it not count.
Yeah, let me save this for guests.
That in turn shows you the difference between the past two pandemics. 100 years, people were crying about it this time, and I was like, "You have Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. You don't have to leave your house. You can order food." I'm like, in 1918, when this happened last time, there was none of that. It wasn't even television.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just listen to the radio 1 hour a day.
That's it.
I also enjoyed the amount of people splitting up during this too. That's another thing. Like they didn't do that back in the pandemic. You stared at your fucking spouse or husband or whatever until. Yeah. But people were like, "It's just not working," and I'm like, "That's hilarious."
Yeah. Well, even you probably lived till you were 45 anyway. Best case scenario, healthy. Right. Your marriage only had to last till you were 45. You were going to die of something other than the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Is there some old age trait that you would love to have when you get older? Like something that you... Because I have. I'll tell you what mine is, and then it'll give you a second. I want a chair that no one else is allowed to sit in. The way my you go over to your grandparents' house, and for whatever reason, it was theirs. It had been collecting their dead skin for the last 50 years, and you weren't allowed to sit in it and touching it.
Yeah.
And I think I need that.
Well, nothing's stopping you.
I was about to say, can I have that now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't have that now. Are you kidding me?
I think there's a Walmart on right over the causeway.
I could have
you can
a
go
chair,
get
but
one.
no one's gonna respect it.
Well, well, now you're asking for two things. You want the chair, or you want respect.
I didn't realize. You're right. I'm being greedy. That's
I guarantee you could walk into Walmart and for less than $70, you'll walk out with your dream chair and a hunk of cheese and a box of crackers.
But even less respect because I did it at a Walmart. So that's the
and
trade-off.
you stop going to the city. You do a show once in a while at the Surf Light.
Oh,
game
the Surf
over.
Light's fun though. Do you do shows there?
No.
You just vacation here. I understand.
No, I don't do it. I've never performed there. I snuck in there once to see the Smothers Brothers though.
Oh shit, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was sad.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that wasn't good.
Well, they're such icons, and you could tell they're just like our agent sent us where we're in the ass end of an ice cream shop. Where some kids who are breaking into the High School Musical are really giving it a go, and we can hear the music because somebody just ordered the Oliver Twist ice cream sundae, so they have to sing about it. And the Smothers Brothers, who are just legends, are there with their guitar, like, what the hell?
Oh, God.
How are we getting out of here?
That's hilarious.
It felt like you walked in and caught your buddy masturbating. It was like, oh, I know you do this, but I shouldn't see it.
Yeah, it does sound more impressive when you say Surf Light Theater. You're like, sure, and then you get there.
Yeah, I mean, good for them. I like. There's nothing better than watching a summer troupe giving their college best try at Annie, or Godspell. That's a fun way to spend a couple hours. I'm all for it. Right. But there's no reason for the Smothers Brothers agents to be booking them there.
Yeah, that was
telling. Yeah, and telling them they can stay at the quarter deck if they want. No.
Oh my God! I love all the inside
not a good
shit.
story.
That's so great. Oh man, I didn't realize they were even there. That's fucking.
But I always feel like my father's always like, "Will you play there? You should tell your agent, do a show at the Surf Light." Mm-hmm. He gets to then go see me do a show. Like, right. And I'm sitting on the beach all day checking the ticket counts. Why are there only 25 people coming? And 10 of them are my family who are with me in their chairs right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want ticket counts to ruin my Long Beach Island nirvana.
I totally understand. I hate doing local gigs. If I do them, it's like charity stuff or whatever. But local gigs, for some reason, there's something about them where like teachers I used to know or have will come out, and I'm like, why?
And that's okay. That's all right if they're walking into a full house where you're killing.
Yes.
But when they come and there's only 6 other people, and they're like, "Oh, what happened to him?"
Exactly. Yeah. And
maybe he should be working at the Wawa.
Yeah. And I'm like, if you just come out of state or into the city or anywhere,
I'm good other places.
Yeah, exactly.
No. That's the hardest part when you're starting out and people would see you just like once every 3 years and they see you bomb in a scenario like that, and nothing is going to convince them that you don't suck until they see you again.
Oh, dude, one of the gigs I had that haunts me to this day. I don't even know why. You always remember the ones when you bomb and whatever, but I started in 2005. So 2008, I'm getting these gigs, and no, maybe a little after 2008. So yeah, a little after that, maybe 2010 or whatever. Because I got to my first time ever opening for a national headliner. I got to did 5 shows with Fallon before he took over for Conan, and then I got to it was a lot of fun after that. But I also worked a part-time job at a library, so immediately it was like 5 shows with him. His family's there; they're super cool. He's selling out because he hasn't done anything in a long time, and he's taking over Conan. A blast, right? And then immediately I'm back working part-time at the library. Everybody hates me. I hate me. I'm working. It's Tom's River. So, so then, a couple of years later, the people I like have a local show they want, me to do. And I go do it. And everybody, I know is there. Teachers, parents of people that never liked me as a kid, but for some reason they're there pretending, and whatever. And I mean, when I say I ate it, there was I don't know what it was, but I could feel the hate. and I tried to do my set, and then I had to go back to work with lesbian. And somebody left a note on my car that said, "You're a fucking dick," and you suck. And the funny thing is. I parked far away, so they had to know it was my car. So I was
it was a
like,
family member. Love
Thanks, Mom.
Dad. Yeah, that's the joke.
And I was like, wow. And I remember that. I mean, of course, you keep going or whatever, but I was like, that one fucking. I remember that shit.
Yeah, that'll sting. Well, that's what's waiting for you in New York next week. Nothing's changed.
What a perfect way to wrap up. Oh man, I don't want to keep you any longer, but because we did an hour. But can I ask you one more question? We ask everybody
Sure.
If you had one piece of advice to give to your younger self, what would it be?
This is what Jim Gaffigan used to do.
Yeah. For my younger self, I was always stressed out about how I looked, or if I was fat, or like any of that kind of stuff. So if I would tell my younger self, I would tell him, you look great right now, and trust me, it's only going to get worse. Like whatever you're feeling now, shelve it, because you have no idea what's waiting for you in 20 years.
Oh man, well seriously, thank you so much for coming on, dude. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and I really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, this was really fun, and let's keep in touch, and we'll run into each other at the Wawa in August.
Absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, guys.
Thanks so much, man. Take care.
Yeah. We'll go get ice cream together.
Dystopia tonight.